What else should you have in your booth? Trained staff. Hopefully enthusiastic staff. Staff who, of people who don't say, you know what, at gunpoint, I'm forced to be in the booth on Saturday, April the 13th, and so I'll be there, drag, kicking and screaming, if not on the outside, on the inside. Having staff that's trained in your booth to be able to deal with potential customers is really important to be able to have. It needs to be not only trained staff, but an adequate amount of staff. Which I think begs the question, okay, what's an adequate amount of staff to have in the booth? A 10 by 10 space, typically 2 people are appropriate to have, but it depends on what you're doing. If you're saying, you know what, we're giving away a new car at the booth, 2 people in the booth may not be enough. You might need to have 1 person full-time just taking information from people who want to sign up to win that new car. What you do want to do is you want to make sure you're staffed appropriately so that you've got people who, if you're giving something away, can handle giveaways, people who can talk to potential clients, and they're not always the same people. There are times at trade shows where there will be 2 different types of people from a business or from a family who are walking the floor. One person is the person who's saying, you know what, I need to go here because I need to find out information about this business. The other person from the family would say, you know what, I don't really care what business you're in, I'm looking for free stuff. What have you got? Your experience may be different than mine, but it seems like there are 2 different types of people. And I think one of the worst things that can happen at your booth is, if you're not appropriately staffed, and if you're overrun with the people who are looking for free stuff, and your staffers are all engaged, you have somebody who's coming to your booth because they are interested in your services, and they say, you know what, they're busy, maybe I'll come back later. And maybe they do, and maybe they don't. And so you've got an opportunity at this show for people who could be looking for the services that you are providing. You want to make sure that you've got people who can talk with those people, and you don't miss out on an opportunity to do that. Questions so far? Comments? You doing okay? Moving too fast? Too slow? Doing okay? Okay. Important concepts to keep in mind. I'd ask you to write this one down, but I wrote it down. Be different. Be different. You need to stand out. And I'm not saying that you need to stand out in a way that's weird, where people say, oh, someone says, how was the business expo? It was fine. There was this one booth, it was really weird. They were different, but it wasn't good different. It was just weird different. Kind of weird different where, you know, I wouldn't do business with them if they're the last people around, just because, and I'm sorry to overuse the word weird, but it was just weird. Instead, you want to be different. You want, your company is different, or your organization is different. You may do something that other organizations do that you do. We're in a bank, so for an example, if you're a banker, and I'm guessing there might be more than one bank at the show, your bank is different. You know, I'm guessing that you accept deposits, you make loans, there are other things that you do. But you do it differently than other banks do. And I think part of the messaging in answering the question, who are you? It's not just, we're a bank, but this is the bank we are. And this is what makes us different. This is how we fit. Maybe it's we specialize in this. Maybe it's something about our staff that's special, that's different. But there's something different about you that offers people a compelling reason for them to do business with you, as opposed to other people who are in your field of endeavor. And what I would encourage you to do, and I won't jump up on the table and wave my arms and scream about it, what I'd really encourage you to do is think about how you're different. That needs to be represented in the booth, and I think your staff, not just in the things you see in the booth, but with the people who are staffing your booth, they need to understand what makes you different, so that if someone says, okay, why is it that we should do business with you? You're a bank, there are other banks here, you're an insurance agency, I mean, you name the field. Why should we do business with you? Where you can say, you know what, staffers know here's why we're different. Maybe it's services, maybe it's extra value that you add. You know better than I do. But not only are you different, your organization is different than others in your field. That needs to show in the booth. You're different. Help us understand as we're walking by the booth why you're different. That helps us understand why we should be doing business with you. Second thing that I think is really important to keep in mind is the tools you use are not as important as the message you're communicating. The tools you're using matter. There are vendors who you saw out there who have a number of things. Do you use banners? Do you use a big backdrop? What kind of signage do you use for the exhibit? Those things do matter. I think even more important than those things is, what's the message that you're communicating? If you can be crystal clear on that message, and the message, 3 things that you really need to communicate, which are answering the questions, who are you, what do you do, why should we do business with you? So be crystal clear on that message. Think about ways where you can summarize it where in 2.5 seconds or less, somebody can say, that's who they are, here's what they do, here's why we ought to do business with them. Keep that message nice and clean and clear. It'll increase the odds of people, by virtue of the messages that they're seeing in your booth, want to engage you and your staff about what you do. Questions so far? Doing okay? Couple bonus tips. I'll take the second one first. There's a terrific website about trade shows. It's www.theadventure.com. It's in your notes. The booth consultant, Steve Miller, who I mentioned, this is his website. And if you want to find some resources that are nice and short and readable resources, go to the resources page. There are a number of books Steve has published. I think the favorite title of a book he's written is Stop Wasting Your Time at Trade Shows and Start Making Money. That's a little bit longer title than most titles, but that's on the website. There are ideas about trade show strategy, about training staff for your booth. If you're saying, you know what, selling in a trade show environment is different than selling in other ways that we usually sell. How is it different? How can we train staff to be able to do that? He's got a book on training staffers for trade shows, which would be a great book for you to check out. Yes?
Do you have any more of the handouts?
Are there any more handouts?
Oh, yeah.
Come around?
$3. Oh, I'm sorry.
4. But theadventure.com is a great website with some terrific resources about trade shows. One other bonus tip, if you will, and it's about shoes. I don't sell shoes, but there's a great story about shoes, which I found to be true, and it applies for trade shows. The show runs 9 to 2 on Saturday, April, what, the 13th? 13th? You, of course, will want to be there well before 9 o'clock so you can be in place. Be nice and ready for people and not running like a maniac and trying to set up right at night. But it runs 9 to 2, so it's 5 hours on your feet. It's a long stretch. Ronald Reagan's father used to be a shoe salesman. I read this years ago. And Reagan's father told him, you know what, if you've got a long day, and as a governor and as a president, Reagan had a lot of long days. But he said, you know what, if you're part of the way through a long day, if you put on a fresh pair of shoes, you'll feel like a new man. And personally, I found that if I am in the middle of one of those long days, or standing on my feet for 5 hours at a trade show, if I find a chance to slip away, not change shoes in the booth in front of everyone walking by, for obvious reasons, but instead, if I can find a chance to break away, change shoes, it just gives you a little more bounce in your step, gives you a little more energy for that second half. If there's a bonus tip, it would be not only change shoes, put on a fresh pair of socks too. That would be pretty good. Again, not in the middle of the booth, but out somewhere private. But that's something that will just help you to feel better and to be on top of your game. Anyway, those I think are some helpful things to think about as far as specifically what do you put on your booth and what kind of messaging should you have, training staff, all those kinds of things are important. Thanks for your time. I'm going to turn it over to Tom.